This is a quiz on pandemics and how they have been documented in children's books. The world is going through the COVID-19 pandemic and its worst victims are children. The books covered in this quiz describe how children cope with either their own illness or that of someone close to them. Novels on pandemics help children relate to contemporary events and enable them to understand what is happening around them, at least to a certain extent. So, let's begin the quiz. Let's begin with the first question. Name the children's book about time travel and an old haunted house that takes the 13-year-old protagonist, Roger, to the plague-stricken London of 1603 and his meeting with a celebrated Shakespearean actor, Tom Garland, who dies of the plague in 1603. The answer to that question is Poor Tom's Ghost, a novel which was written by Jane Lewis Curry and published in 1977. Moving on to the next question. The author of this children's fantasy bought and restored the oldest continuously inhabited house in England, Hemmingford Grey. It became the setting of her classic novel where the young Tolly, the protagonist, goes to meet his great-grandmother and meets the ghosts of Toby and his siblings, Lynette and Alexander, who had died during the Great Plague of 1665. Name the author and the novel. It is The Children of Green Knowe by Lucy M. Boston. The third question. Which epidemic is responsible for the death of the parents of Mary Lennox in Frances Hodgson Burnett's classic children's novel, The Secret Garden? Mary Lennox's parents died of the cholera epidemic in India. Moving on to American literature. Name the novel about a white American family moving from Wisconsin to the Indian Territory near Independence, Kansas, and developing malaria on the prairie. The answer to that question is the hugely popular Little House on the Prairie by Laura Ingalls Wilder. Still continuing with American literature. This classic American children's novel had a character dying of scarlet fever. The author's younger sister suffered from scarlet fever and recovered, but with a weakened heart. Name this popular classic and its author. The answer to that question is Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. Louisa May Alcott's Little Women has the character Beth March, who is based on her younger sister Lizzie Alcott. The famous children's novel, written by Marjorie Williams, that has a velvet rabbit and a boy suffering from scarlet fever. The boy recovers and the rabbit is discarded in the disinfection process. Name this very popular children's classic. The answer is The Velveteen Rabbit, published in 1922. The seventh question. This is a popular children's novel series written by Laura Ingalls Wilder and has one of the child characters becoming blind due to scarlet fever. Name this famous novel. The novel is By the Shores of Silver Lake, which was published in 1939. The eighth question. Which novel has a 13-year-old protagonist, Isabel, who survives the deadliest plague in human history, the 1349 Black Death? The novel describes the deadly impact of the plague that wiped out nearly 45% of the English population and resulted in far-reaching social changes. It is the novel All Fall Down by Sally Nichols, published in 2012. The ninth question. The protagonist of this novel is a 7-year-old girl. Her name is Omakayas, and her baby brother suffers from smallpox, and he dies in her arms. This American novel is set in the Ojibwe village near Lake Superior and chronicles the impact of smallpox on the American Indian community in the mid-19th century. Name this novel. The answer to that question is The Birch Bark House by Louisa Erdrich, published in 1999. Coming to the last question of this quiz on pandemics and children's literature. Name this novel that has an apocalyptic perspective and revolves around 3 teenagers who survived the plague in London in 1999. The answer is the famous book Plague 99 by Jean Urey, published in 1989. With that, we conclude this quiz on pandemics and children's literature.